The Spell of the Sorcerer's Skull by John Bellairs, Chapter 5. For the time being, Johnny was not getting any answers. "Stupid door blew open again," muttered Father Higgins, and he stamped down the aisle to close it. 3 days they had to wait. For Johnny, 3 days had seldom passed so slowly. Thursday dragged by, and so did Friday. On Friday evening, to make himself feel better, Johnny called up Father Higgins and had a long conversation with him. He had not wanted to talk about the ghostly jack-o'-lantern before for fear that the priest might laugh at him, but now he decided to lay the whole thing out on the table. He told Father Higgins what he had seen, and he described the night when he burst into the professor's house and found that he had vanished. And he added that he was afraid that evil supernatural powers had something to do with the professor's disappearance. He also mentioned the Childermas clock and told Father Higgins a little about its strange history, but he did not mention the ghostly midnight vision he had had, or the skull. These were things that he still wanted to keep secret. Father Higgins listened gravely to what Johnny had to say, and he did not scoff or laugh. He said that Johnny was probably right, that deviltry was almost certainly involved, and he added encouragingly that the powers of the light might come to their aid. They'd know on Saturday night. Finally, Saturday evening arrived. There was no church service scheduled for that night, so Johnny said that he was going to light a candle in the memory of his mother. When he got to St. Michael's Church, he immediately scooted around the block to the rectory, which was where Father Higgins lived. He pushed the doorbell, and soon the priest came out, holding in his hand a bunch of keys to all the various doors and locked cupboards of St. Michael's Church. Father Higgins looked tense and crabby. "Well," he said, scowling, "I suppose we might as well go see what we can see. I warn you, though, there may be nothing written on the sheet at all. Nothing, that is, but the message you wrote the other night." Johnny had already prepared himself for disappointment. This was a silly, crazy thing they were doing, and he knew it. He told himself not to expect too much. Father Higgins and Johnny entered the church by a side door. The old building smelled of wax and incense, and the air was clammy, as it always was, even in the middle of the summer. All around them, the dark, empty church loomed. Half a dozen candles burned in the slanted, wax-encrusted iron rack in front of St. Anthony. As Father Higgins walked toward the statue, Johnny could feel himself growing tense. The priest slid between the candle rack and the pedestal and placed one large, hairy hand on the front of the statue. Johnny heard him mutter something as he tilted the heavy statue back. His fingers were on the folded paper now, and he was yanking it out. Down came the statue again, gently clunking into place. Father Higgins squeezed himself out from behind the rack. He walked toward Johnny with the paper in his hand. The suspense was unbearable. Johnny clenched his fists and felt his nails digging into the palms of his hands. With maddening slowness, Father Higgins unfolded the paper. He looked at it, and then he let out a loud exclamation. "Good God! Come and look at this, would you?" Johnny edged closer and peered over the priest's arm. Across the note that he had neatly printed was writing. It was large, scrawly, and loopy script. It reminded Johnny of the marks he had made once when he tried to write while holding a pencil in his teeth. At first, the writing looked like total nonsense, but Johnny soon realized that there were words and phrases. With a little effort, he was able to make out what they said. "Where the bays run together, a great reckoning in a little room." Father Higgins' jaw sagged. "Lord," he whispered, "I would never in my wildest dreams have believed." Suddenly he stopped speaking. His eyes narrowed, and he turned and peered into the gloom. "What's the matter, Father?" asked Johnny, frightened. "Oh, it was just a thought that occurred to me," muttered the priest. "I wondered if maybe somebody had been hiding in the church and watching when we put this note under the statue. If they had been, they might have taken the note out and written this." Johnny's heart sank. He knew that this might be the real, true explanation behind the mysterious writing, but he did not want to believe it. "Gee, Father," he said hopefully, "I think the church was empty that night, wasn't it? I mean, didn't we check it out?" The priest shook his head. "No, John, that's just the trouble. We did not check it out. There could have been somebody up in the choir loft or squatting down behind the pews. You know Raymond, the feeble-minded guy that works at the gas station across the street? Well, he could have been in here. He ducks into the church sometimes and does funny things, like moving the candles around on the altar. And now that I think about it, that might explain the front door banging open the other night, I wonder." Johnny was beginning to feel desperate. If Father Higgins didn't believe this was real supernatural writing, then who would help him find the professor? I don't think Raymond could have moved the statue, said Johnny, in a voice that was beginning to tremble. Tears sprang to his eyes, and he could feel his lower lip quivering. He didn't want to break down and cry, but he was afraid he was going to. Father Higgins turned to Johnny, and his harsh scowl softened into a sympathetic, sad smile. He really was a kind-hearted man, and he realized how much Johnny wanted to believe that the writing had been done by supernatural powers. "Look, John," said the priest softly, putting his arm around him, "I'm not trying to be mean to you. I'm just trying to test out this thing and see if maybe there's an ordinary, everyday explanation to it. I believe in miracles, but they sure don't happen all the time. We've got to keep our heads if we're going to get anywhere." And we'll pause there.